Well, welcome to the Foxstone Financial Wealth Matters Show. I'm Christian Ravsten, the CEO of Foxstone Financial, and I have a very, very special guest with me here today in the studio, a good friend, Brian Strandes, and I'll let him introduce himself. But again, this is the Foxstone Financial Wealth Matters Show, bringing to you people that have an impact on your wealth and how to increase prosperity and make life better. So this is another guest I have. Brian, welcome.
Thanks, Christian, for having me. I appreciate it. Great to be on the Foxstone Financial Show and interact with you again. It's been a little bit.
It has.
We've known each other for 3 or 4 years. And
Yep.
I've really enjoyed learning from you all about what you offer and how you serve your clients. And thanks for having me on the radio show.
Well, I'm glad you're here. It's going to be a fun one.
Yes, it is.
So tell me a little, well, not me. I know who you are, so you don't need to tell me, but tell the people that are watching and listening what makes you special other than your beautiful face.
Right. There's a lot of things that make me special. I'll only mention a few here. But
okay, good.
Certainly the first thing we do, so I bought a staffing and recruiting business about 4 years ago and have turned it into one of the, premier companies that focuses on matching people based upon culture and value systems.
So that's different. So let me interject real quick. I mean, that's, from what I know about you, that is your coup de grace, is culture. Culture, right?
Yeah, I really believe it's a differentiator amongst different companies on who's successful and who's not successful. I think you can throw a bunch of different people together that are talented, but if they don't kind of mesh as far as their value systems and cultures and how they serve their clients, it's going to be a failure. I've been involved in a number of different organizations just like you, but the thing that really made this paramount and made me emphasize it in the company that we run now is my experience with coaching teams. I know I don't always have the most talented players, but when we have the kids line up to where they're all working for each other and they're all working for something that's greater than themselves, and they're, understand that the only thing they can control is their attitude and effort, we've been really successful. And I think it goes the same way with companies. I know when you took over Foxstone, you had a different crew who were working there, and you have made wholesale changes in order to get the culture to where you want it to be so that you can serve your clients better. And I think there's a lot of organizations like that. Now, with a smaller company like mine or yours, you replace 2 or 3 people and the culture changes. In a large organization, when you have either hundreds or thousands, it takes a lot longer and a lot more intention to change that culture. But I'm certain that you can do it with seating people in the right places at the right time and the right seats.
So a staffing company is essentially, tell us more about essentially what a staffing company is, and again, what makes you, other than just culture, I mean, what makes you different and better than everyone else?
Great question. So,
because you are better, right?
Well, we think we're better. We serve our clients. We don't do extraordinary things. We do the ordinary things extraordinarily well. So
that sounds incredible. Like you practiced that a couple times.
Well, Christian, when it becomes a part of your culture, it's really easy as it rolls off your tongue. So what we do as a staffing company is we supply with people who are going to do jobs that maybe you don't know that are going to be around for a long time, or maybe are temporary, or maybe a crush. So for tax season, we staff up accountants with a lot of tax people.
Okay.
In the fall, we're working with a couple of different companies. Sodexo is one of them, which is a big meal prep company that works at the colleges and high schools around here. We're going to help them get some people who are into meal prep, some moms who are around. For, different companies, we may be able to do some data entry if they're changing ERPs. Or things like that. So there's a lot of different ways that we serve our clients. 10 Till 2, the company I bought, was started about 16 years ago by a group of ladies who had a great idea that there were a lot of mostly moms who were very, very smart and good workers, but they'd taken some time off to raise their families. Their kids had gotten into elementary school and were currently going to school from, say, 9 to 3, so they could work from 10 till 2, have a half-time job or a part-time job. It was a really great idea, was revolutionary. They were lauded in all the media from CNBC to Forbes. That business is taken off and kind of is the core of 10 till 2. When I came on board and bought the company, I decided we should probably survey those people who have been working for us for a number of years. A lot of them, their kids had gotten older.
Yeah.
In high school, college, they had an opportunity to work full-time. So we said, okay, do you want to work full-time? They said yes. So we decided to start 9-to-5 Search. 9-to-5 Search works with bigger companies to give them full-time employees or full-time staffing. 10-to-2 is kind of part-time permanent staffing. 9-to-5 is more full-time recruiting. So we focus on finance, accounting, and the construction and engineering companies here around Denver and the Front Range area. So those are the two kind of ways that we serve our clients, is matching the culture. I think we can teach people skills. Experiences comes with time, and either God gives you talent or he doesn't. But the way that you show up to work and the way you show up to serve your clients is really what your culture is. Are your people more a team, or are they kind of siloed where everyone does their own thing, but you come together as a team to get the big jobs or the big goals accomplished? Do you have an organization where pretty much manufacturing talks to sales, which talks to accounting, which talks to everyone, so that you really have not a structured hierarchy? You have more of a mesh system that allows people to talk across departments to each other and be interactive with each other. Neither one is right or wrong.
Yeah.
What they are different, and different people thrive in different areas. In my experience running an orthopedic distribution company, I had hired probably 15 to 18 different sales reps over my 15 years. I made a lot of mistakes, and all of them were based upon culture. I looked for someone who had the skill set or the kind of tools in order to do the job, instead of finding someone who fit with our team and then teaching them the data and the skill set and the different techniques that they would need to learn to do the job. So I believe in matching that culture first and foremost is going to make people stick. And it's only through them being around for a long time that actually owners and people who run companies get a giant benefit of making money off them.
So when you are looking, or when a company comes to hire you and comes to you and says, Brian, listen, we need help, right? We're looking for XYZ person. Do you have to start with the culture change there at the top of that company and say, okay, I understand you're looking for this perfect person and here's their resume, right? But have you considered culture? Do you have that conversation originally with them, or do they say, this is the person that we're looking for and we're willing to teach them the skills? How does the interaction between you and the company that's looking for staff work?
That's a great question. And the way that I prospect or look for clients or have people introduced to me is, that's one of the first questions we ask. On a scale of 1 to 10, Mr. Business Owner, how important is culture to you? Mm-hmm. If it's a 5, well, I understand how you might feel that way. I want to give you a little bit of information, and there's a ton of data that backs up the premise that culture beats strategy or eats strategy for lunch. I mean, you will go much farther with a great culture than you will with a great strategy. So people who say, hey, listen, 8 or a 9 is how I feel culture affects my business, then we're compatriots. And we say, okay, well, listen, I understand we all have, symbols on our walls and different sayings that we have for how we treat our people. And we have a values-based company here. Those are all important things, but the culture is how we show up for each other. So when I find an organization that does want to hire some people and they have that mentality, I'll go in and talk to the hiring manager, then spend a little time with the people who are actually working at the company, who will be the person's mates, basically, the people who they're going to work with long term, and ask them about, do you guys do anything on Friday nights? Do you have a softball team? If there was one thing you could change about this company with a magic wand, what would it be? What do you love about this place? What needs a little work? What's your goals now for the next 5 years in growing with this company? Mm-hmm. Communication has really become a lot more of a prominent kind of experiential part of having a job. Yeah. So, we used to when I was first coming out of school, they would give you a computer and jam you in a car and say, go sell something. Now it's a lot more, hey, let's handhold. Let's figure out how we can work as a team. And let's give you a path to where you can get to where you need to be in 5 years or 10 years down the road, and communicate about things on a consistent basis. It's different, not any better or worse, just different. And I think managers and people who are in positions of power need to understand the communication part, because otherwise people will go away and they'll actually just, they won't tell you why they left, they'll just leave.
So your job is really finding out more about that company.
Yeah.
And I say that more about, I think anybody can get on glassdoor.com and find out about what the company and the employees are saying, right? But the anonymous people are saying about the company there. But your job is to drill deeper and find out more about those people so that you can find that really good fit.
Yes.
Well, if culture eats strategy for lunch, let's say you have somebody that is a good culture fit but potentially doesn't have the skill set, how is that viewed by the hiring manager or the CEO of the company? What does Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, how do they view that?
It's a great question. So oftentimes people don't have the exact skill set that they're looking for. I think that if the person has the right attitude, they show up for their customers just like you do, they fit with the team, they're all about working towards that common goal that you have as an organization, you get them on your team and you teach them what they need to know.
Yeah.
If you're telling me that someone doesn't have the ability to learn, well, that's really that's
a horse of a different color.
Right. That's a horse of a different color. But see if they were all in AP accounting and you want to teach them AR. Well, all right, let's figure out how we can kind of take the skills you already have and apply them to this new job and, fill in the gaps where you need the skill gaps. Because people are going to learn things. It's a constant learning thing. You're doing things entirely different than you did them 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's not a job in this, environment now where you don't have to learn.
So you had said, or you had mentioned earlier that for the 9-to-5 search, well, let me back up. 10 Deal 2 is any industry, any business you can help kind of fill that part-time gap. 9-to-5 search, you are focused on the accounting and finance in the construction industry?
Construction, engineering, and manufacturing.
Okay.
And that's a great question. The reason why we do that is because there's only one way that we're going to find out about people, how they show up at work, and that's by speaking with them. So we have, through a lot of job search and being around for 16 years, we have pretty extensive write-ups on a lot of the people in our database who we essentially are the people we're hiring out for or filling positions. Since we know them, we know how they showed up at other jobs, we understand how they interact with the people who they work with, their coworkers. We actually have a pretty good idea of what culture they're going to fit into. So those are the kind of people who we plug into a silo job, or people who are, hey, listen, I don't need a lot of interaction. I just want to be on my own, kind of do my job and hit the road.
Yeah.
Other people who are, I need to be on a team. We got to have a team meeting. I got to be fired up, and then we got to go out and accomplish some goal during the day. So those people who we've extensively interviewed, we have a great idea where they want to be in 5 years. Hey, I am a controller at a $100 million construction company. The guy who's the actual, CFO is not going to move out for another 10 years. So if I want to move up, I better figure out how I'm going to get there. So through our interaction with placing this controller and talking to them about their long-term goals, we know that they're open to a move to a smaller company to be a CFO. And they can really benefit that company because of all their big company experience. So those are the kind of things and the questions and the personal information that we get out of people, where they want to go with their life and how they want to show up.
Right, so it's very different than a traditional recruiter.
Yes.
Right.
So traditional recruiters, you'll never see them. You'll speak to them on the phone. They'll never visit your office. We spend a lot of time up front, interviewing the people who are the hiring managers and then speaking to people in the company, but also drilling down and figuring out, where does this company want to be in 5 years? Okay, they're $10 million. They want to be $20 million in 5 years. Okay, so they're going to need to double in size, maybe get 50% more people to do twice as much business. So we're always looking for people in the infrastructure that they need in order to fill those holes that they're going to have to get going in order to grow the way they want to grow.
So you can work with any size company then?
Yeah, we work with a lot of different size companies. Biggest company we worked with, right now we're getting on with a big company, about 5,000 people, where we're going to do a number of different accounting roles.
Yep.
And we've worked with 3-person companies and finding them a receptionist or a bookkeeper or something like that.
Yeah, and you could see that, to your point, the smaller company, one bad apple, that culture goes down the drain pretty quick.
It goes down extremely quickly. And I had it in my own company when I hired people that weren't the right culture fit. So I think, in today's world, when I think about what we can specialize in and how small businesses can really focus on what they do well to grow, accounting, recruiting, marketing, a lot of these things we're not experts at. I know I'm not as a small business.
Right.
So these things have to be outsourced.
Yep.
They have to be taken to a person who is an expert so that they can get the best people. Because let's face it, if your books aren't right, if you don't send the right message, and if you don't have the right people, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, you're going to be dead in the water.
You're dead in the water. And I think in the old days and when I first got into business, I thought I could be pretty good at a lot of different things. Then you learn about, hey, what are my strengths?
Right.
I'm not very good at this accounting thing. I better farm that out because it doesn't get done well or correctly if I do it. I'm not very good at marketing, so I need to find someone who can write up a marketing plan and stay on message. And I'm not very good at recruiting because I don't do it consistently. Like in your business, you're good at serving your clients, making them money, preserving their capital, and giving them an opportunity to grow.
I mean, that's our goal.
Yeah, that's your entire goal. And so you focus on that. You don't focus any time on building a studio in which to host a program or doing some things that are outside of your wheelhouse.
Correct. Just because you are correct. I mean, my wife does, the accounting for us. She does the bookkeeping, and I have no interest in that. And if I tried to do it, it would just take me so much longer. And then my wife would have to come back and probably fix it just because I just don't think with that side of my brain. And some people are like, accounting and finance, it's the same thing. But it's not. It's very, very different, which is when you say that's who you're hiring, accountants, finance people, engineers, those two very separate.
Oh yeah.
I'm excluding engineers right now because they're completely different. But accounting and finance, you can't throw a finance guy in accounting typically, and vice versa. You can't throw an accounting guy into finance. So it's two very different tracks and ways of thinking and careers. So you need to make sure that you're matching the two up correctly.
Well, think about it. You're a finance guy. You're strategic. You're always thinking, okay, how can we set things up so that they'll be A, predictable, and B, profitable?
Right.
There's tactical too. Okay, well, we need to get this spreadsheet made. That's not really your strength. You have people who can do a spreadsheet, make it up, spit out a couple of numbers, put all the formulas in there. And so I think that a lot of the tactical things for a strategic person like yourself, it's never going to work. You're going to get bored, frustrated, and not do it well.
I know. My dad actually just came to me, and for those of you who don't know, my father's a consultant with us. He works for another company of ours, but he helps on retirement plans for us. And he came for another business opportunity. He's like, we should build a spreadsheet. And I was just like, of course.
Of course we should.
Of course we should. And of course, when he said we should, what that means is he's written it down on a piece of paper and he wants me to go and build the spreadsheet. And I'm just like, I mean, I can. Right. But it's an energy drainer for me.
Exactly. So you spend your time doing what you do best, which is in front of clients, looking at different deals, having an idea about, conceptually, does this fit with our long-term business plan? Are wind turbines really working for us, or is it kind of a means to give some of the people who we have in our investment pool an opportunity to invest in companies like this? It doesn't matter which one's right, but you want to make sure that your message and all your efforts are going in the same direction and that you're not putting your efforts into something that A, drains you, and B, you're not very good at.
Yeah.
And C, that you can outsource for $20 or $30 an hour.
Right. That's the important thing, is that you're helping people. And I think when I look at small businesses, what you have the ability to do is obviously go in and drastically impact culture for the better, right? Help them kind of get a flat line of growth, really, exponentially help increase that line so they get a better growth projections. But not only that, but that you are plugging the people into the right boxes that should be there so that the business owner, instead of being in all of these boxes and doing a little bit of everything, he or she can say, okay, I'm going to only focus my efforts here because it's the best use of my time. And you can come in and say, I've got a person for this, I got a person for this box, I got a person to fill this. And the efficiency just increases drastically. I'm mixing those two words.
It does increase quite a bit. The other thing is, a person like yourself, they're energized, okay? So you're fired up about what you're doing. You really enjoy. You pop up in the morning and you're ready to go to work. It's not a dreaded thing. You aren't doing things that drain you. The thing that's hard, I think, for a lot of business people to understand is that just because you don't get excited about making a spreadsheet doesn't mean no one gets excited about making a spreadsheet. One of my limiting beliefs was that because I didn't enjoy it, other people wouldn't. So when you can turn those things over to people who make it look like, hey, it's like solving a puzzle. I want to make this spreadsheet so that it spits out the numbers you want. And, it takes a lot of different steps, but I look at it like a puzzle. So it energizes them. So not only are you doing the things that you need to do that energize you, they're doing the things that they need to do.
So here's the question that I have for you, and I have known you for a while, but how did you come to understanding the importance of culture? I mean, talk us through that transformation, because I don't think when you come from a corporate culture, or a corporate job, that you don't have the say in the culture. But how did you learn the importance of culture and start to, or have you always known that it was important? And how did you implement that into your business now, 10 till 2 and 9 to 5 search?
It's a great question. So I think that I started understanding it when I saw myself. I was reasonably successful in my last career in spite of having a terrible culture. And I looked at other companies that were not selling anything different than I was, drastically different, that did really, really well. And I noticed that the commonality amongst them was that they had really good people who worked together well, who brought each other up, who were kind of attitude and effort people, tryhards.
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't the most talented, maybe they weren't the most skilled, but they worked as a team, and they always they always did the best they could, let's put it that way, and gave the customer what the customer needed, not necessarily what they wanted. Mm-hmm. So in looking at those teams and how they were successful, I looked around and then I looked at all the teams that I've coached. Yeah. And I had some really talented athletes, but sometimes I didn't have a group of kids who worked together well because they just didn't get along as well as they could have. So I look at all those different data points and said, okay, what's the commonality among these successful people, and how do they maintain their success? You see companies that grow at 20% a year for, Stryker did when I worked for them for 20 years, 20% a year. That's remarkable. They had a great culture that was all about teamwork, sales. They had a ton of ex-college athletes and athletes in general, and people who were on the front lines were always upbeat and kind of positive, half-full type of people. You can't have that in the accounting department, but when I worked with them and I realized that they only hired to a really specific type because that worked for them, then I started figuring out, okay, so if we have a specific type of person who can do this position, then we can really, get it going and be successful in that. So teams, different companies, the commonality in the successful ones was they had good people who were doing the right things. Teams that weren't successful, companies that were broken, and I worked for plenty of those just like you did, they didn't have a unity or a culture or a value system that people shared.
Right.
I think that's when I decided that we need to figure out how we can make this work. Through our interaction in 3 to 5, we were exposed to a lot of different studies about how culture impacts company success. Mm-hmm. Made sense to me. And when you put those things together, the raw data or the data, and then you put together your experiences in your life, there's no other way to go. And I think that we've been hearing about it a lot more in the last 2 or 3 years, how it really is an impactful portion of what you can focus on to make your company grow in the quickest amount of time for the least amount of expense and really have your people thrive. It's culture.
So do you work with people that are looking for jobs? And what I mean by that is if they come in and they say, hey, Brian, I'm looking for a job, and I'm looking for a job in the accounting space, wherever it is, right? I just want to get back into or I want to find a job. Do you sit and do any type of coaching with them and say, all right, this is what most employers are looking for. You tick off most of the boxes, your resume looks great, but we need to work on culture. We need to work on communication. Do we need to work on maybe some people skills, which may be hard for accountants because
they're not people. I get it.
People.
Yes.
But what's your interaction with that individual person? Because we have been talking about how you help the business and work with the hiring managers and the CEOs. What's your interaction with that person? Is there any, or is that a completely different person?
No. We interact with them quite a bit. So we want to know what makes them tick. We got to find out what their skill levels are, how they've been successful and unsuccessful, both in different environments, as far as what works for them, what their ideal job is going to be, where their growth path is going to go to. So we spend a lot of time talking to people, and that's why it's an hour and a half. We talk to them about as much as we can. There's a lot of rules now, personal rules, that we can't ask about a lot of things. So we talk to them about, what'd you do on the weekend? Do you have any hobbies that you really love? What was your last time that you felt truly fulfilled?
Yeah.
What was happening around you? And, how about in that kind of flow where everything was going right? You could not miss a shot in, playing horse or those kind of experiences in work when you really felt like you were getting it.
Yeah.
And, try and mimic those through companies and through bosses mostly. People don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. So if they don't really like the person who they're working with, their player coach is what I like to call them, then they're not going to be around very long. And after you've taught and invested and spent, time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears and treasure, it's a challenge to watch someone go down the road for another $1 an hour. And when it's really not really worth it, and you really didn't get them into your culture or show them that you are different.
Yeah, and I think that's on the companies.
Entirely.
Right.
Entirely. So we spend a lot of time talking to people. We spend a lot of time talking to companies. And try and figure out, through our notes and through our matching process, who's going to work with who. Mm-hmm. We don't get it right 100% of the time, but we get it right a pretty good percentage of the time. And out of the probably 30 people we've placed in the last 18 months, I'm going to say that 26 of them are still employed in the same place.
Really?
So that's really good in today's market.
Yeah. That's great.
It's hard for people to kind of get their bearings and get their feet down and stay in a place. It's a different mentality as far as the young people who are coming into the the workforce, and it's a different mentality as far as employers. They don't expect them to stay as long as they used to. No 40 years.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so.
So what are some of the changes that you've seen within the workforce, and not just the workforce, but how are, I guess, question number 2 to that, how are companies adapting to a changing workforce and, telecommuting or, I guess I'll preface that by saying that my cousin, he lives in Utah, and he's, I think, on his 3rd job with a different company, but every time he goes, he gets paid more and gets a different position. And this last job that he's at right now, his current position, I mean, they have like, dull fruit twists, in the basically cafeteria, and they can go down and get it at any time. And, they've got people playing music, and like, it's a very type of camaraderie within the company. So how are you seeing the workforce, the landscape changing and adjusting, and what are companies to do to be acceptive or accepting that change?
That's a great question. So I think it's all unique. Those are great points. We never saw a ping pong table 30 years ago anywhere. You would be promptly shown the door if you wanted a ping pong table or a pool table or free food or things like that. I think what we're learning now is that there is a real fight for talent and talented people. If you're a very, very good specialist person who does one thing or a couple of things really, really well, people pay a lot of money to do it. So they are more than willing to compromise on their traditional, I guess, precepts or whatever they need. These marks you need to make in order to stay. The other thing is, our world is interconnected like no other time. So you don't have to be in an office, in a desk, in a chair, in a cubicle with a computer in front of you. You can be on a beach somewhere in the Bahamas or, in the mountains with good Wi-Fi. It doesn't matter where you are. A lot of the things, whether it's accounting or marketing or even data entry and some admin stuff, making appointments, people don't have to be sitting next to you. Now, what's great about that for companies is they have a lot of different ways they can account or can compensate people. We can give you more money. We can give you some more time off. We can take a free trip for a weekend up to the mountains. We can send you and your family out to Disney World. So the way that you compensate people and keep them around, it varies different for all kinds of different people. Some people love time. Some people love money. Some people want to have the opportunity to maybe take a couple of coworkers and go volunteer at a soup kitchen together and bond that way. That's really impactful and important to them. It doesn't matter what those things are, since they all basically cost an employer a certain amount of dollars, and you can set that dollars wherever it is. Give them options so that they can feel fulfilled, so that they have choices. Love and Logic is a book that we've utilized to raise our children, where we talk about, okay, you can either clean up your room, or you can, wash the dishes. there's two choices here. So let's give them choices, and you make the choice. That way they have buy-in in the whole experience. So I think when you do that to employees, that's one way that you kind of interact with them on a different level. The other ways that you interact with them is you really have to be communicative and give them a written out plan, or at least every 3 or 6 months, check in with them and say, hey, listen, I know that in 18 months, the program is you're going to move up from junior buyer to buyer in our program.
Right.
It doesn't look like that's going to happen, but what we want you to do is we'll put it on a 24-month schedule. In the meantime, what we would like to do is plug you into some more training about being a buyer. Okay, so we want to invest in you, time, effort. Or is there anything that you really believe that would be a benefit to you, a course maybe out there that we could send you to be a better buyer? So I think that there's a lot of different ways that people are communicating with their employees, as well as staying right in front of them so that they don't feel like they're out in an island, just being forgotten, locked in a door. And I think that was largely the way it was years ago.
Yeah.
People didn't care.
Right.
And you were replaceable. Now we're realizing, hey, we have a finite number of really quality employees. If we don't keep them around, we're going to have to A, get new ones, and that's expensive, and B, train them, and that's expensive, and C, they may leave. So we need to take care of the people we have whatever way we can, and there's a lot of different ways to do that.
And I'm sure that you are involved in that coaching process with those companies, correct?
Oh, yeah. We talk to them about it doesn't matter what the employee gets for a bonus, for whatever compensation you want to give them, whether it's time or money or an experience or anything. What's important is that you decide, let them decide.
So tell me one of your more recent successes.
Sure.
Whatever it is, just, I want to hear about, and I want people to hear about a recent success that you and either 10 till 2 or 9 to 5 search had. Let us in on your world a little bit.
Sure. So one of the things we're working on right now, or just got finished working on, was an accountant for a financial company, much like yours. Okay, so they need kind of a controller person who is going to oversee everything, make sure that the bills are paid, everything is running on time and under budget, and kind of corral. There were 3 partners in this organization. They weren't all getting along as far as what they were using, as far as the resources that the company had. And so they needed kind of a little bit more of a control area there. So this company is down in Cherry Creek. We worked with them and found them 3 different types of people. One was very much a lower level person who was kind of going to be a nuts and bolts type of person. We can do the accounting. We can make sure that all the, the touchstones or stop gaps are in place so that, hey, you can't go over this limit, do all these different things. Right. They really needed some financial controls over their organization. We found another person who was a little bit more of a kind of a get-along person, more of a manager type, who would be able to kind of interact with all the different things. And then we found the last person we found, and these were all at varying different. The first person I think was $55,000. The second person was $65,000. Then we found someone for $85,000 who was more of a controller type of person, who actually could come up with strategic ideas on how we can not just take the programs that they were using or the tools that they were using, but blow those up and make them much more impactful and multiply their impact on an arithmetic or geometric level.
Okay.
And by combining a few of the things that this company did. So they ended up buying the most expensive person because they had the best ideas. And this goes back to kind of a current concept that we all worry about is, am I ever going to get outsourced? Or am I going to get AI'd? Is something going to be able to do something that I do routinely better than I do without ever taking a break? So I think in the tasks area, like we talked about with those lower level kind of controller people who could do the tasks or make the entries, do those kind of things, that's going to get outsourced eventually. Eventually there's going to be some AI program where you feed in a piece of paper and it spits it out into the right category.
Right. Strategy
and technical thinking and the ability to, take divergent pieces and put them together towards a coherent thing is never going to go out. So the strategic person that they hired was their choice because they see that all this other stuff is kind of going to get programmed out. We need someone who thinks in a bigger picture. So when you think about AR people, AP people, general bookkeepers, things like that, those could potentially go away. But people who have strategy. So we're trying to force companies to think more like this. Not force them, but at least give them the opportunity to. That, hey, we're going to have, you can outsource this. We can have someone who's in Malaysia do your accounting. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
But meeting with the bank, getting a larger line of credit, lining up which piece of equipment we're going to purchase and how we're going to implement, depreciating it. Those are things that we need a strategy person for. So that's how we're talking to our companies in regards to what do you need and how do you need it. And that's how we're trying to fulfill them, is giving them that higher option where they can really get a lot more benefit out of the strategy portion of an employee.
That's awesome. All right. So another question. You had mentioned Love and Logic as a book. What other books do you like right now?
That's a great question. So,
or any that you've read?
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Blank.
Such a good book.
Really good book.
Is that such a good book?
It's a great book.
Yeah.
I'm reading that one right now. There's a few out there. I think, I really like Chuck Blakeman, Making Money is Killing Your Business. I like Traction. There's a lot of really good books. We're very fortunate right now. There seems to be a plethora. I just reread Tuesdays with Maury.
Okay.
Which is another, not a business book, but certainly one that makes you believe that I better put my things in order and focus on things that are really high priority things. Otherwise, I'm not really making any progress here.
That's exactly right.
I think anything that allows you to kind of focus in on what's your part in your business, how can I maximize my strengths, minimize my weaknesses, and fill in the other areas in my business with people who are really good at what I don't do well.
Yeah. So where do you see the business going in the next 4 years, 5 years?
I see us moving. I think there's probably going to be a change in the environment as far as economically. I think that things are probably going to get worse. So, in times like this, we kind of feast on direct placements.
Yep.
Because people need people. I think in the other times when things go down, we do more staffing. So one of the reasons why we try and diversify is because things ebb and flow, and we want to be in the right place at the right time. There's always a good place. If you need people, there's always going to be a place for a recruiter. I believe that the service that we give is really valuable to people because, like a lot of stuff, they don't do it every day interviewing, and there's some specific techniques and skill sets that you need to have in order to do it well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I remember my wife a while ago, she interviewed for a job, and I asked her how it went. And she's like, it was kind of an adrenaline rush. Like, she hadn't done it for years and years and years. And, she came out of it, and she's like, I can see why people do certain events or sports or things because it gives them that rush. And she's like, I totally got a rush in that, accounting interview. And it was,
which is odd to think of.
Totally odd, but she loves accounting. But that was such eye-opening comment that she made to me.
Well, I think it's just like your position, what you're doing now. If you ask good questions, you get to have a great interview. If you ask, and you get better as you ask more and more questions, as you do this a number of times. And we all get better at what we do. But the hard part about with smaller companies, especially in hiring, is you do it once a year. Yeah. You never get good at it. Never. And you actually probably weren't good to start. So just hire those things out because it'll pay off in the end and it'll be money well spent.
Yeah. All right. So again, this is the Foxstone Financial Wealth Matters Show. We've been talking a lot about culture today with Brian Strandes, the CEO of 10 till 2 and 9 to 5 Search. So if you guys want to get a hold of Brian, want to pick his brain, need his help on potentially culture fits, looking at your culture in your business, and bringing in the right people, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Christian, you can give us a call at 303-909-3868. My cell phone is 303-229-5643. Always get a hold of me. Brian at 10till2.com. That's the number 10, TIL, number 2.com. And go look at our websites, 9 to 5 Search and 10 till 2.
Perfect. So, again, I know Brian's done a great job. You and I know a lot of the same people, and I hear rave reviews from what you do and the people that you've been able to help. And I only see that continuing to increase, especially as you go for, City Council soon?
We'll see.
Good for you. Well, again, this is the Foxstone Financial Wealth Matters Show. Brian, it's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Christian, for having me.
Again, it's all about culture, right?
Yes.
Helping not just people get better, but corporations and companies evolve and become better in a very changing landscape and a changing workforce. But the bottom line is, culture eats strategy for lunch.
People come for the money and they stay for the culture.
Yes. And I can't, it's interesting about that is the lady that works in our office that you talked with this morning, she's amazing. Like we couldn't do our business without her. And I think, she's worked with us for a long time. And I think the culture is, we'll do anything for her, give her time off and when she needs it or when she wants it. And it's a really good relationship. And I can't imagine, and we've tried to insert people into that mix and that haven't worked out. And it's always just kind of like, you're always left picking up the pieces. Whereas right now it's nice, right?
It's easy.
It's easy. And that's the way business should be.
Yes.
And it would be frustrating to go to work and be like, I have to see that person again or work with that person today. And nobody wants that.
No.
So culture is vastly important. Mm-hmm. So reach out to Brian, 10 till 2 or 9 to 5 search. He will definitely help you out, potentially changing the culture, but definitely improving the culture of your business so that you can get back to growing revenue and having a business that you love to go to. So again, thank you, Brian. Again, Foxstone Financial Wealth Matters Show. This is something that absolutely impacts our wealth and impacts our lives, is our business and the vitality of our businesses. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Christian.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
See ya.